The gunshot echoed across the barren landscape, scattering a flock of crows into the crimson sunset sky as Beau Weston dropped to one knee, his weathered hand pressed against the wound in his side. Blood seeped between his fingers, staining his dusty leather vest as he scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of shelter in the vast expanse of the 1876 Arizona Territory. Beau had been riding for 2 days straight since the ambush that had separated him from his cattle drive. The gang of rustlers had taken everything: the herd, his supplies, and nearly his life. All he had left was his faithful horse, Rebel, a half-empty canteen, and the single bullet remaining in his Colt revolver. "Just a little further, boy," Beau murmured to Rebel, gripping the saddle horn with white knuckles as he pulled himself back onto the horse. The pain radiated through his body, but he knew stopping meant death in this unforgiving land. As night descended, a pinprick of light appeared in the distance. Beau guided Rebel toward it, hope flickering in his chest for the first time in days. As they drew closer, the light revealed itself to be a lantern hanging from the porch of a modest homestead nestled against the base of a rocky hill. Beau's vision blurred as he approached. The last thing he remembered was slipping from the saddle, the thud of his body hitting the hard ground, and the sound of a woman's voice calling out in alarm before darkness claimed him. "Mama, the man is waking up." The childish voice pierced through Beau's consciousness, pulling him from the depths of a dreamless sleep. He opened his eyes to find a small, freckled face hovering inches from his own. The little boy, no more than 7 years old, grinned widely, revealing a gap where his front teeth should be. "Tommy, get back from there. Give the poor man some space to breathe." The boy scampered away, and a woman moved into Beau's field of vision. She was perhaps 30, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes the color of sun-warmed honey. Her face showed the weathering of someone who spent long days under the harsh western sun, but there was a softness to her features that spoke of kindness. "You're lucky to be alive, mister," she said, placing a cool cloth on his forehead. "That bullet went clean through your side, but the wound was starting to fester. You've been out for 3 days with fever." Beau tried to speak, but his throat was parched. The woman seemed to understand and helped him sip water from a tin cup. "Maggie Winters," she said by way of introduction. "And you've already met Tommy, my youngest. The rest are scattered about doing chores." "Beau Weston," he managed to rasp. "I'm obliged to you, madam. Rest now, Mr. Weston. We can talk more when you're stronger." As Maggie turned to leave, Beau noticed the patched dress she wore and the worn floorboards of what appeared to be a modest cabin. Through the open doorway, he caught glimpses of other children moving about. He counted at least 4 different faces before exhaustion reclaimed him. The next time Beau awoke, sunlight was streaming through a small window. He felt stronger, the burning fever replaced by a dull ache in his side. Carefully, he pushed himself up to a sitting position and took stock of his surroundings. He was in a small room with rough-hewn walls. His gun belt hung on a peg near the door, and his boots stood neatly beside a simple wooden chair where his cleaned and mended clothes lay folded. The door creaked open, and a girl of about 12 peeked in. Her hair was the same auburn as Maggie's, though her eyes were a striking blue. "Mama says if you're awake, you might want something to eat," she said shyly. "I'd be grateful," Beau replied, offering a small smile that seemed to put the girl at ease. "I'm Sarah," she volunteered. "I'll tell Mama you're up." Before Beau could respond, Sarah disappeared, and he heard her footsteps pattering down what he assumed was a hallway. Moments later, Maggie appeared with a tray bearing a bowl of stew and a hunk of bread. "You're looking better," she observed, setting the tray beside him. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," Beau said, inhaling the aroma of the simple stew. His stomach growled loudly, and Maggie chuckled. "Eat slowly," she advised. "Your body's been through quite an ordeal." As Beau ate, Maggie filled him in on how she'd found him collapsed outside her homestead, and with the help of her oldest boy, had managed to get him inside and tend his wound. "I have to thank you, Mrs. Winters. Not many would take in a stranger like this." A shadow crossed Maggie's face. "Out here we help where we can, and please, it's Miss Winters. My husband John passed 2 winters ago, pneumonia," Beau nodded solemnly. I'm sorry to hear that. You've got quite a brood to look after on your own. 10 children, she confirmed, and Beau couldn't hide his surprise. Not all mine by birth, she added quickly, seeing his expression. John and I had 5. After the fever swept through Copper Creek last year, we took in some orphans. Then John got sick. Her voice trailed off, and she busied herself adjusting his blanket unnecessarily. That's mighty admirable, Beau said softly. How do you manage, day by day? Maggie replied with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We get by. But as Beau recovered over the next few days, he began to see the reality of the situation. The children ranged in age from Tommy at 7 to James at 16. They worked tirelessly tending a small garden, caring for a few scraggly chickens and a milk cow, mending clothes and performing countless other chores. Yet despite their efforts, signs of their struggle were evident. The pantry was nearly bare. The children's clothes were patched and repatched. The roof leaked in 3 places when an afternoon thunderstorm rolled through. And Maggie, though she tried to hide it, was clearly exhausted, often going without so the children could eat. On his 5th day at the homestead, Beau was strong enough to join the family for dinner around the large, scarred table. The meal was simple beans, cornbread, and a small amount of salt pork divided among 12 people. Beau noticed that Maggie took the smallest portion, claiming she wasn't very hungry. That night, unable to sleep, Beau heard soft crying coming from somewhere in the cabin. Following the sound, he found 9-year-old Emma sitting on the porch steps, her thin shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "What's troubling you, little one?" he asked gently, easing down beside her. Emma wiped her nose on her sleeve. "I'm hungry," she whispered, as though admitting to some terrible sin. "But I don't want Mama to know. She already gives me part of her food." Beau felt something twist in his chest. "Your Mama's a special woman. She tells us not to worry," Emma continued. "She says as long as we have hope, everything will work out." She looked up at Beau with wide eyes. "What's hope taste like, Mr. Beau? Is it filling?" The innocent question nearly broke him. "Hope isn't something you eat, Emma," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "It's what keeps you going when times are hard." "Oh," Emma sounded disappointed. "I thought maybe it was something special Mama was saving for later." Beau put his arm around the child's shoulders. "Tell you what. Tomorrow I'll see about finding something more substantial than hope for your belly. Now let's get you back to bed before your Mama worries." After settling Emma back with her sisters, Beau made a decision. Maggie and these children had saved his life. It was time to repay that kindness. The next morning, Beau approached Maggie as she was hanging laundry. "Miss Winters, I've imposed on your hospitality long enough. I need to be moving on." Maggie paused, a damp shirt in her hands. "You're not fully healed, Mr. Weston. I've survived worse," he assured her. "But before I go, I'd like to help out a bit. Your roof needs patching, and I noticed your corral fence is coming down. If you've got tools, I can fix those things." Maggie hesitated, pride warring with practicality. "We don't accept charity, Mr. Weston. It's not charity. It's payment for saving my life and nursing me back to health." After a moment, Maggie nodded. "We have some tools in the shed, but you'll need to be careful with that wound." Beau spent the day repairing the roof and reinforcing the corral. James worked alongside him, the boy's eagerness to learn touching something inside Beau that he'd thought long buried. By sunset, he'd made good progress, but there was still much to do. "I'll finish up tomorrow," he told Maggie over another meager dinner. "You said you were leaving," she reminded him, a question in her eyes. "One more day won't hurt," Beau replied. "Besides, I promised the children a surprise." Early the next morning, before the household awoke, Beau saddled Rebel and rode to Copper Creek. The small mining town was 10 miles from Maggie's homestead, a dusty collection of wooden buildings strung along a single street. Beau made his way to the general store, where a bell jingled as he entered. "Help you, mister?" asked the storekeeper, a balding man with spectacles perched on his nose. "I need supplies," Beau said, placing his Colt revolver on the counter. "This should cover it." The storekeeper picked up the gun, examining it with an expert eye. "Fine weapon. Army Colt, looks well maintained." "It's gotten me through some tight spots," Beau admitted. "But I need food more than firepower right now." An hour later, Rebel was loaded with sacks of flour, beans, coffee, sugar, and salt pork, along with other essentials. Beau had also purchased a small pouch of hard candies, one for each child. His gun was gone, but he felt strangely unburdened as he rode back to the homestead. The children's eyes widened when they saw the bounty he'd brought. Maggie stood in stunned silence as Beau and James unloaded the supplies into the kitchen. "Mr. Weston, I can't accept this," she finally said, her voice tight with emotion. "It's too much." "It's not enough," Beau countered quietly, "but it'll keep bellies full for a while." That night they feasted, a simple meal by some standards, but rich compared to their recent fare. The children chattered excitedly, their faces glowing in the lamplight. Maggie caught Beau's eye across the table and mouthed a silent thank you that warmed him more than any fire could. As days turned into a week, and then two, Beau found reasons to stay. There was always another repair needed, another chore to complete. He built new shelves in the kitchen, reinforced the chicken coop, and helped James expand the garden. He taught the boys how to track game and set snares, bringing home rabbits and the occasional wild turkey to supplement their meals. In the evenings, he sat on the porch with Maggie after the children were asleep, sharing stories of his life as a cowboy, the cattle drives from Texas, the wide open skies of the plains, the camaraderie of the trail. She, in turn, told him about growing up in Ohio, coming west with John as a young bride full of dreams, and the hard reality of frontier life. "Why do you stay?" Beau asked one night, genuinely curious. "You could take the children back east, find an easier life." Maggie gazed out at the star-filled sky. "This land gets in your blood. Despite everything, I love it here. The freedom, the possibility, and the children, they've already lost so much. This is their home." Beau understood. The West had claimed him the same way, with its harsh beauty and promise of something better always just over the horizon. As April turned to May, the land began to green. The garden flourished under their care, and the children's faces filled out, no longer gaunt with hunger. Beau found himself watching Maggie when she wasn't looking the way she hummed while kneading bread, how her rare laugh transformed her face, the gentle strength with which she guided her diverse brood. He knew he was falling for her, but he fought against it. A drifting cowboy with nothing to his name had no business dreaming of a woman like Maggie Winters. One afternoon, while Beau was mending a saddle on the porch, 12-year-old Sarah sat down beside him, her blue eyes serious. "Are you going to marry our mama?" she asked bluntly. Beau nearly dropped his awl. "What makes you ask that? She smiles when you're around. She hasn't smiled like that since Papa died." Sarah traced a pattern on the wooden planks. "And you look at her the way Papa used to." "It's not that simple, Sarah," Beau said gently. "Why not?" "Don't you like us?" "I like you all very much." "Then what's the problem?" "James says you're the best thing that's happened to us in forever. Even Rebecca likes you, and she doesn't like anybody." Beau had to smile at that. 14-year-old Rebecca, with her fierce independence and prickly demeanor, had indeed been the hardest to win over. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated reasons for the things they do or don't do, he tried to explain. Sarah gave him a skeptical look. "That sounds like something adults say when they're being stupid." With that pronouncement, she hopped up and skipped away, leaving Beau to ponder her words. The next day, a commotion drew everyone outside. A cloud of dust on the horizon heralded the approach of riders, half a dozen men on horseback heading straight for the homestead. Beau instinctively reached for his gun before remembering he'd traded it away. "Get the children inside," he told Maggie, his eyes never leaving the approaching riders. "What is it?" she asked, already gathering the younger ones. "Trouble, maybe." Beau grabbed a rifle from inside the cabin, an old Spencer that had belonged to John Winters. He checked the load and positioned himself on the porch as the riders approached. The men reined in their horses a respectful distance from the cabin. Their leader, a burly man with a thick beard, raised his hand in greeting. "We're not looking for trouble," he called out. "Name's Harlan Davis. I run the Double D Ranch north of here." Beau lowered the rifle slightly but remained alert. "What brings you this way, Mr. Davis? Word in town is you've been helping the widow Winters and her orphans." Davis said, his eyes taking in the improvements to the homestead. Thought we'd come see for ourselves. Maggie stepped out onto the porch, her chin held high. Mr. Davis, I haven't seen you since John's funeral. Davis had the grace to look uncomfortable. Been meaning to check in on you, Mrs. Winters. Things got busy at the ranch. For 2 years. Maggie's voice was cool. One of the other riders spoke up. Madam, we've brought you something. He gestured toward a small herd of cattle being driven up by 2 more cowboys. 10 head of prime stock, a breeding bull, and 9 heifers. Should give you a good start. Beau and Maggie exchanged a startled look. I don't understand, Maggie said. Davis shifted in his saddle. John Winters was a good man. He helped me once when I was in a tight spot. I should have returned the favor sooner. He glanced at Beau. Sometimes it takes an outsider to remind us of our obligations to neighbors. As the implications sank in, Maggie's hand flew to her mouth. Mr. Davis, this is too generous. It's not charity, Mrs. Winters. It's an investment in good neighbors. Davis tipped his hat. Your cowboy here has created quite a stir in Copper Creek. Traded a fine colt for groceries, been fixing up your place. Got people talking about how we've all let you struggle too long. After the ranchers departed, promising to return with more supplies and help for additional repairs, Maggie turned to Beau, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Did you know about this? Beau shook his head. No, madam, but I'm not surprised. People out here generally do right when reminded of it. You've been reminding them, it seems. She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of lavender she somehow managed to maintain despite their hardscrabble existence. Why, Beau, why have you done all this for us? The question hung between them, heavy with possibilities. Beau looked into her eyes and found he couldn't lie, not to her. It started as gratitude. You saved my life. He took a deep breath. But then I got to know you, your strength, your kindness, the way you love these children like they're all your own. And I found myself wanting to be a part of that, wanting to help make your hopes real. And now, Maggie whispered, now I'm afraid I've fallen in love with you, Maggie Winters, with you and with 10 children who deserve the world. For a moment, Maggie stood perfectly still. Then she reached up, her hand gentle on his weathered cheek. I thought I'd never feel this way again after John died. I didn't think my heart had room for more grief if I lost someone else. I understand, Beau said, preparing himself for rejection. No, you don't, Maggie said with a small smile. I'm trying to tell you that you've brought more than food and repairs to this home, Beau Weston. You've brought laughter back. You've shown these children that men can be kind and strong and reliable. You've reminded me that it's possible to love again. And then she was in his arms, her lips finding his in a kiss that felt like coming home after years on the trail. Behind them, a cheer went up from the children watching from the doorway, led by an enthusiastically clapping Sarah. Summer came to the Arizona territory in a blaze of heat and promise. The garden flourished, the small herd of cattle grazed contentedly, and the Winters homestead transformed. News of their improving fortunes spread, and other neighbors came forward with help. A Pima woman teaching Maggie better ways to preserve food, a blacksmith offering to take James as an apprentice, a retired schoolteacher volunteering to educate the younger children. Beau found odd jobs in town, saving every penny. Though Maggie insisted he had nothing to prove, he was determined to contribute in tangible ways to the family he hoped to join officially. The gold band he purchased was simple, but it represented everything he wanted to offer her: stability, commitment, and love without conditions. He proposed on a clear July evening as they watched the sunset from the porch steps. The children had conspired with him, making themselves scarce but watching eagerly from windows and around corners. Maggie Winters, he said, taking her hand in his, when I collapsed at your doorstep, I was a man with nothing but a dying horse and a festering bullet wound. You gave me life, but more than that, you gave me purpose. I never thought I'd find a place to belong, people to love who might love me back. He withdrew the ring from his pocket. I can't promise riches, but I can promise to work every day to be worthy of you and these children. Will you marry me? Maggie's eyes shimmered with tears as she looked from the ring to his face. The children will be ecstatic, she said softly. Is that a yes? Her laugh was like music. Yes, Beau Weston, 1,000 times yes. The wedding took place in September when the worst of summer's heat had passed. The entire town of Copper Creek turned out, plus ranchers and farmers from miles around. The ceremony was held under the cottonwood trees beside the creek, with James proudly giving his mother away and the other children standing as attendants. As Beau and Maggie exchanged vows, he marveled at how far they'd come. The gaunt, desperate widow and her hungry children had been transformed. Maggie glowed with happiness in a new dress the women of Copper Creek had secretly sewn for her. The children, healthy and hopeful, beamed from their places of honor. "I now pronounce you man and wife," declared the circuit preacher. "Mr. Weston, you may kiss your bride." As Beau leaned in to kiss Maggie, Tommy broke free from the line of children and launched himself at them, wrapping his arms around their legs. The crowd laughed as the other children followed suit, turning the couple's first kiss into a family embrace. The celebration afterward was the biggest Copper Creek had seen in years. Tables groaned with food, a fiddle player got everyone dancing, and the children ran wild with newfound friends. Beau watched it all with a sense of wonder, Maggie's hand clasped firmly in his. "Happy?" she asked, leaning her head against his shoulder. "More than I ever thought possible," he admitted. "When I first came to in your cabin, I was ready to heal up and move on, never expected to find a home." "Hope has a funny way of becoming real when you least expect it," Maggie said, her eyes finding the children as they played. "These children survived on hope for so long, hope and whatever meager meals I could scrape together. Now look at them." "Hope and love," Beau corrected gently. "You gave them both, even when you had little else to give." As evening fell, lanterns were lit, casting a golden glow over the celebration. Davis from the Double D approached with his wife, presenting them with a deed. "Wedding present," he explained gruffly. "The southeast pasture that borders your land. Good grazing has its own spring, room to expand that herd of yours." Overwhelmed, Beau and Maggie tried to refuse, but Davis waved away their protests. "Consider it an investment in the future of Copper Creek. Those children of yours will need something to inherit someday." Later, as they rode home in the wagon with sleepy children piled in the back, Maggie rested her head on Beau's shoulder. "Did you ever imagine your life would turn out like this when you were riding the long trails?" Beau thought about the lonely years, the cattle drives, the endless horizon that had always called him forward but never felt like a destination. "Not once," he admitted, "but now I can't imagine it any other way." They crested the hill, and their homestead came into view, moonlight silvering the roof Beau had mended, smoke still curling from the chimney where they'd left a banked fire. It wasn't grand, just a simple cabin with additions built to house their growing family, a sturdy barn, corrals for livestock, and fields beginning to produce. But it was theirs. Built on hope, sustained by love, and now thriving with the promise of a future neither of them had dared to imagine just months before. "Welcome home, Mr. Weston," Maggie said softly. Beau's arm tightened around her shoulders. "Home," he repeated, the word filling his chest with warmth. "That's a mighty fine sound, Mrs. Weston, mighty fine indeed." In the back of the wagon, Tommy stirred and mumbled sleepily, "Are we home yet, Pa?" The simple question and the title the boy had bestowed upon him brought a lump to Beau's throat. "Yes, son," he managed, "we're home." As the years passed, the Weston homestead flourished. The herd grew, the fields expanded, and the house itself was enlarged to better accommodate the family. James apprenticed with the blacksmith in town but returned to help on weekends. Rebecca, despite her initial resistance to Beau, discovered a talent for working with horses and became his right hand in training stock. The younger children thrived in school and at home, growing strong on good food, hard work, and the steady love of two parents who had found each other against all odds. And when their first child together was born, a daughter they named Hope, Beau and Maggie knew their family's circle was complete. 10 children saved by hope and kindness, plus one born of the love that had made everything possible. On quiet evenings when the chores were done and the children settled, Beau and Maggie would often sit on the porch, watching the sunset paint the western sky. Sometimes they'd reminisce about his arrival half-dead and desperate and the journey that had led them to this point. "I fed them on hope for so long," Maggie would say, her hand in his, "but it was your kindness that made it real." And Beau would always reply, "No, it was yours. You saved a stranger when you had nothing to spare." Everything good in our lives grew from that one act of kindness. In a land where survival often depended on hard choices and harder hearts, they had built something rare and precious, a family bound not just by blood but by choice, by sacrifice, and by love that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. The hope that had once been just words, empty comfort for hungry children, had become a living reality more abundant than either of them could have imagined. And in that, they found their greatest wealth.